Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin and this is Katnip Dreams of Food. If you're returning to my channel, thank you so much for watching. And if you're new to my channel, well, welcome. So today is a little bit different of an episode compared to the episodes that I traditionally have on this channel. Or normally I have a series titled Food History with Katnip. And in that series, I select a country or region at the end of each episode, and I use a globe to determine that. And then I take the entire week to fully research the information and the food culture, and then I synthesize that information for you guys. But today's a little bit different. It's still part of the Food History with Katnip series. It's not a country or region, it's actually the origins of the food history of Halloween and the fall time, and just some of the ingredients that we see every day. Pumpkin spice. And I just wanted to learn about that, and when I asked on Instagram if you would be interested in this video, it was overwhelmingly a very popular option. So if you are looking for the traditional episodes where I research the country or region, I will continue on with that next week, and the country will be Mongolia. And I have already researched that country and I'm really excited to present that to you guys. But let's get into today's episode about the food culture and food history of Halloween and fall time traditions. So I'm going to begin with Halloween because that was the first topic that I really researched. So Halloween has roots in multiple cultures and religions, and it's kind of hard to determine which culture it directly comes from. So I think it's very safe to say that it's a combination of different cultures and religions. So I'm going to begin with the ancient Celts. And the ancient Celts were mainly residing in the British Isles and part of Western Europe. And they were a pagan culture that really emphasized nature when it comes to their religion and their traditions. They celebrated a festival called Samhain, which centered around different things. So it marked the beginning of winter to start. So it really was the celebration of summer's end and going into winter. It was also a festival or a gathering where multiple political and social standards were put into place in the culture. The festival really did center around remembering lost loved ones, and it was thought that on this day, and it's believed to either be on October 31st or November 1st, depending on the source, but it was believed that on this day the line between the mortal world and the other world, where those that have passed on, was a lot thinner. It was easier for the lost loved ones and other spirits to pass back into the mortal world. And besides the souls of the lost loved ones, it was also believed that there were evil spirits as well as fairies that could also travel during this time. So to ward off those potentially evil spirits, bonfires were traditionally used as a way to ward off any bad spirits. And people would often dress in frightening costumes, potentially using the carcasses of animals to ward off those evil spirits, or to just basically give a gift to those evil spirits. There were sometimes animal sacrifice, and for those loved ones that were returning, food and beverages were left out for their lost loved ones as well. So it's very safe to say that the traditions of bonfires and dressing up in costumes could be linked back to this festival. It's important to note though that there weren't any written records of this festival, at least from ancient times, so a lot of the accounts were recorded by Irish monks much later in time. Another culture that potentially did influence the traditions of Halloween today would be the ancient Romans, and specifically the festival of Pomona, which was celebrating the goddess of the orchards. And some of those traditions, like bobbing for apples, were seen very, very early on in ancient Roman culture, and I thought that was very interesting. And then a lot of the traditions that you see in Halloween today do derive from Christianity, and when Christianity first became popular in Western Europe. So looking at the traditions of the ancient Celts, it was easier to take a festival like Samhain and adopt it into Christian traditions. So for example, All Saints' Day was originally celebrated in May, but in the 9th century, the celebration of All Saints' Day was actually moved to November 1st. And that was because Samhain was such a prevalent festival. So Christianity wanted to make sure that All Saints' Day was celebrated around this time, so there was a focus on the Christian religion. And then that leads into Hallowtide, which is a 3-day celebration that was celebrated very early on in Christian tradition. So it begins with October 31st, which is All Hallows Eve. And that's obviously the origins of the name of Halloween. And then it goes into All Hallows Day or All Saints' Day, which is November 1st, and then November 2nd would be All Souls Day. So very early on, a tradition that was seen by the ancient Celtic people was morphed to fit Christianity, and it was a way to allow the people that were being influenced to switch to Christianity to still be able to keep some of their traditions that at the time were considered maybe harmless, and then morph them to have Christian traditions as well. And then the origins of trick-or-treating, which is something that I really enjoyed as a kid, and if it was socially acceptable, I still would do. But it actually started in the 14th century, and it wasn't called trick-or-treating at the time, it was called souling. And souling was basically when children from families that were of lower social status would go from door to door and ask for small charity donations or food. And then in return, they would say a prayer for the lost loved ones of the family, or for a saint, or for any religious purpose. So it's very easy to assume that trick-or-treating did start from this tradition. So in the 16th century, Christianity really did split. There were certain groups within Christianity that did not celebrate this, and the Puritans, which we'll get into when they go to the New World, were one of those groups. But the Catholics and Anglicans that did come to the colonies did celebrate it. So some of those traditions were brought early on, and when Irish and Scottish immigrants came to North America, that's when Halloween really became a lot more prevalent. And then one of the traditions that Irish immigrants did bring that is still thought of to be very important, and it's almost the mascot for Halloween in some ways, as you can see there's pumpkins all behind me, would be the tradition of jack-o'-lanterns. So the tradition of jack-o'-lanterns actually goes back to Irish folklore, and it's a story that is based around Jack of the Lantern, and he was a gentleman that was basically a hindrance to society, and one night he was walking through the countryside and he had far too many drinks. Based on the folklore, the devil approached him, and so basically Jack tricks the devil by asking him if he can have one last drink before the devil brings him back to hell and he loses his life. So they go out for a drink. Jack doesn't want to pay for the drink, so he plots a trick where he asks the devil to turn into the coin to pay for the drink so he doesn't have to pay for it. So the devil, complies with that, and when he turns into the coin, Jack puts the coin into his pocket next to a crucifix, which doesn't allow the devil to bring him to hell. So Jack says to Satan, give me one more year before you bring me to hell, and the devil agrees. So 1 year later, Jack finds himself in the same situation where he's had too many drinks and he is walking along the countryside, and the devil approaches him again to bring him to hell. And once again, Jack asks for one last favor, and he asks if the devil will get him an apple from this tree. The devil climbs up the tree, and while he's doing that, Jack puts crucifixes all around the tree, which doesn't allow the devil to bring him back to hell again. So Jack then convinces the devil to never allow him to come to hell. So Jack was a very tricky man. So eventually Jack does die, and when he dies, he's clearly not able to go to heaven. He's denied because of the really terrible life that he's lived and the immoral life that he's lived. But then when he goes back to hell, the devil doesn't allow him to come in because he made the deal that he wouldn't ever have to go to hell. So the devil gives him a turnip and hollows it out and fills it with a light. And it's said that Jack was left to wander the Irish countryside in purgatory. That's where the legend of the jack-o'-lantern came. So when this tradition was brought to the New World, turnips weren't as prevalent as pumpkins, and pumpkins were a lot easier to carve. So the tradition of pumpkin carving does go all the way back to that tale in that Irish folklore. A lot of the spooky elements of Halloween can be traced back to the age of Gothic literature, and that's from about 1830 to 1900. So whenever we think of like a haunted house, I know Disney's Haunted Mansion, it would be an example. It's traditionally a Victorian style house, and that's no accident. The reason that we always think of haunted houses to be associated with Victorian times is because of the literature during the time. And two of the most important characters were produced in the literature during this time, and that would be the monster of Frankenstein and Dracula. Another thing that's really associated with Halloween would be witches. One of the most famous times in history when there was a huge witch hunt would be actually in Salem. And so from 1692 to 1693, 19 people were executed in the belief that they were witches. And so we've kind of talked about some of the influences of modern Halloween, but I just kind of want to talk about when Halloween really did become prevalent in American culture. So the tradition of basically trick-or-treating, which comes from that idea of souling, was really started in the 1910s in Ontario, Canada, and then in the 1920s in Chicago. And then the town of Anoka, Minnesota claims to be the Halloween capital of the world. And that's where it's really believed that the tradition of trick-or-treating and Halloween parades and just the prevalence of Halloween as a celebration really began. Sugar rations around World War II did put a hold on trick-or-treating for a little while, but going into the 50s and on, trick-or-treating became very prevalent and a very key part of American culture. And then I was kind of wondering about other things that are associated with Halloween and fall time. Think of apples and apple cider and apple picking. So early on in American history, hard cider was actually one of the most popular drinks to be consumed by people because it was very hard to transport wine without it spoiling from Europe, and beer was more of a German tradition, whereas cider was brought over from England and Irish tradition. Cider really started to lose popularity in the 1920s because of Prohibition era. So a lot of the cideries started to produce apples that were used just for eating. So a lot of the varietals of apples that were used for hard cider aren't really seen today. So a lot of the hard cider that we consume today is not very traditional. It's a lot sweeter than it's meant to be, and it's more like just drinking cider. Alright, so that was a little bit of an overview of Halloween and Halloween traditions, trick-or-treating, why are apples associated with it, apple bobbing. I hope you guys learned a little bit, because I know I did. But then we gotta get into pumpkin spice lattes. So pumpkin spice isn't a new thing, but pumpkin spice lattes and the flavor of pumpkin spice, I really do enjoy it. I know it's a very polarizing flavor for a lot of people, but I wanted to kind of look into when did pumpkin spice become a thing in America and why is it so associated with this time. So pumpkin spice consists mainly of cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, clove, and allspice. And all of those spices, with the exception of allspice, were very prevalent in Europe, but allspice wasn't discovered or heavily used until the age of exploration and was used in the Americas. And pumpkin was very prevalent, like I said, in the New World. The first time that pumpkin spice, or just the combination of the spice used in pumpkin spice, was actually seen in a recipe for pumpkin spice cake in 1939 in the Washington Post. And then in the 1950s, these spices were pre-blended by McCormick and sold commercially. And then moving very far ahead in time, in 2003, Starbucks created the pumpkin spice latte. And originally it didn't even have any pumpkin in it at all. It was just a mix of those spices with caramel color and flavor. And it was marketed in 2004. And then the recipe was reformulated, I believe, in 2015 to add actual pumpkin puree. Multiple coffee chains and everywhere that you go, there have been variations of a pumpkin spice latte or some form of a pumpkin spice latte. And then today I'm gonna show you some of the pumpkin spice themed snacks that I got, both at the Schutz Apple Mill, and then I got them at Target and then Wegmans as well. Alright guys, so for the taste test portion, somebody's here with me, Tim. Are you excited?
So excited.
You look really excited. Do you like pumpkin spice?
Not particularly.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but this is mainly pumpkin spice. So he's only gonna try a few of the items because that's all I can really get him to do. But we're gonna start with the marshmallows. Starting out with the jet puffed pumpkin spice marshmallows. What are your first impressions?
Feels weird.
It's marshmallow. So it looks like a pumpkin. That'd be delicious in a pumpkin spice latte.
I don't think I like marshmallows very much.
What'd you think of the flavor though?
It's good.
I actually really liked this. I think it would be a good variation for a s'more, and I would actually buy these again. I think they're pretty good. All right, next we're gonna try the pumpkin spice malt balls from Schutz. So they have a very like marbled kind of red and brown color. This tastes like malted milk ball.
I don't know, was this supposed to be pumpkin spice?
Mm-hmm.
It just tasted, it was good.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't taste like pumpkin spice.
Yeah, there's like no pumpkin spice.
That's probably why it was so good.
Really good quality malted milk ball though. All right, I think I'm gonna get Tim to do one more. So which one do you want to try?
Not candy corn.
Not candy corn? Okay. Well, maybe we'll do the pumpkin spice Jordan almonds.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, these are the pumpkin spice, oh God. These are the pumpkin spice almonds.
Is there a difference?
No.
The color?
Their color's different.
Orange.
Okay, I want orange too. Ooh. Ooh.
That's what I'm not actually.
I think it's white chocolate. Mm-hmm.
The two colors taste the same if you were wondering.
These are really good. I'm gonna eat all these. All right, he's gonna try one last thing. These are the candy apple pretzels. I did not like those. It tasted like a Jolly Rancher, like green apple Jolly Rancher mixed with white chocolate and then pumpkin spice. And it was like weirdly salty and I don't know, it had like a little bit of an acidic taste. What do you think?
It tastes like an air freshener. This is disgusting.
Yeah, don't get those. Alright, and then Tim and I are gonna have the ciders from Schutz. So Tim has their regular apple cider and I'm trying that small batch hard cider. What do you think?
I love shit cider. I was thirsty, so I stuck around just to have some cider.
Those apple pretzels. This is really good. It's very dry. It tastes kind of like a Spanish cider. I know that I talked about that a lot of the ciders that are seen today are very sweet, so I think that this batch definitely achieved that old style of hard cider. I really like this. It's good. Alright, so Tim didn't want to be part of the rest of these because he doesn't like any of these candies. I actually do. So next I'm going to go into the chicken feet or candy corn. So I don't know if you, when I was a kid, I used to always just bite the yellow part and put them back in the bowl, and my mom hated it. Yeah, I don't know. I like candy corn a lot. It's really good. It has like a slight vanilla taste to it. Actually, it just tastes like corn syrup, but I enjoy it. I'm a huge fan of sour candy. So we're gonna go next into the sour pumpkins. Smelling them, they smell kind of like orange, so I'm gonna try it. It actually tastes like fresh orange juice. It doesn't taste very chemically. That's really good. It's kind of like a similar consistency to a Sour Patch Kid as far as like the texture of the gummy. So it's not very chewy like a gummy bear. It's more like a Sour Patch Kid. And then like the grit from the sugar tastes really good. I really like these. They're good. I don't think I could eat more than like 5 of them because they are very acidic. And even though I like acidic things, this is very much pushing it. And then I have these pumpkin spice yogurt covered pretzels. Those are really good. Compared to the candy apple pretzels, I think the flavor works a lot better. Even though it said it was a yogurt covered pretzel, it definitely tastes more like white chocolate, which I really much enjoy. I think that this and the almonds are my absolute 2 favorite of the candy items. And then the malted milk balls were good, they just didn't taste like pumpkin spice. I would not recommend the candy apple pretzels. And then if you're looking for a really good cider, and I actually haven't had any of the regular cider, I'm gonna drink some of Tim's. If you're ever looking for a really good cider and you're in upstate New York, Schutz Apple Mill has the best apple cider. Because it tastes like pure apples, it's really crisp and fresh, slightly acidic, doesn't feel like it's coating your tongue in sweetness. It's my absolute favorite. And I really enjoyed that hard cider because it's very dry like a Spanish cider. So I hope you guys enjoyed those fall items. Thank you guys so much for watching and allowing me to have a little bit of a variation in my food history series, and I really enjoyed doing this one. So if you want to see more food history episodes that deal with maybe holidays or certain ingredients that are seen seasonally, let me know. I really enjoyed doing it. But next week I will have the video on Mongolia and Mongolian food and the food culture and food history. But thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.